So for this masterclass, I thought it might be nice to talk about the journey of the musician within. What is your internal journey as a musician, and why do you play? Why do we practice? What do we do it for? And last time I came across to Canada and did one of these workshops, we were talking about efficiency of our time, about teamwork and performance anxiety, and all these kinds of things just seem to have been thrown up in the air. So it makes you think a bit about, why are we practicing? What are we practicing for? Who am I as a musician? And who is it that I am practicing for? Am I practicing for myself? Am I practicing for other people? So it's been this really strange time, I think, of sort of self-evaluation. And it's nice to kind of be able to step back sometimes and just see what is that we're doing and why we're doing it. At the beginning of lockdown, we had a couple of little performances where I live. So I've got a little balcony outside my flat, and one of my colleagues, who's a violin player, she lives across the other side of the same complex. So this is a huge mill complex of about 400 people. And someone said, will you do a little concert? So we said, yeah, sure, no problem, that's fine. Little, stand on the balcony, play a couple of pieces, easy peasy, no problem. And I found I got really nervous, like more nervous than I have been in years standing in front of a concert hall. And it really made me think, why was I so nervous? And I think it's partly because, I didn't have a captive audience. These were people, some of them might not have wanted us to play. They might have had no interest. They hadn't come to a concert to watch us playing. And you're sort of intruding on their time. And I was also not in my best form. I've been, working really hard. I thought it was really interesting that the sort of the physical and the mental aspects of playing still applied, even though I was in my own home environment, where I should be at my most comfortable. So I thought we could use, this time and space that we've got at the moment, even if you've got a crazy job, hopefully you've got these little pockets of time where you can sort of spend a bit of time on your playing that you might not normally have time to do. And you can use that time to go on a bit of a journey of self-discovery, about discovering yourself and the musician within yourself. So a lot of what I've been doing when I've had a few spare minutes here and there, I've been doing a bit of yoga. And one of the stories that keeps coming through these yoga sessions that I've been doing is about focusing on the process and not the product. So often you think of things like this and you think, oh yeah, we're going to do all these crazy sort of postures, and actually that's not what it's about at all. It's about the journey in learning what your body can do and what your mind can do as you're doing it. And music's very similar. We're thinking about, what is our goal, our product. Your goal might be, I want to play a Super C, or I want to play this really hard piece that I never thought I'd play before. That is the product, that's the end product of what you're aiming towards. But if you never get there, the interesting part of playing is the journey that you go on to get to that point. So even if you never quite get to a Super C and you get to, a couple of notes before it, then that in itself has been a journey that you've been on to get there. That is the process, and that is the most enjoyable bit about playing. So I want a little bit of interaction here. I want you to pause your video, and I just want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen and just quickly write down your goals. What, as a player, would you love to achieve? Do you have something that a burning desire for something that you've always wanted to do? Or maybe you don't, and you need to actually think about, what do I want to achieve with my playing? Okay, so pause the video now. Okay, so it's interesting that now you've written down these goals, you think, okay, so how do we achieve them? What is the route that we're going to achieve? Now practice, of course, is the obvious one. It's what we all do, isn't it, to get to where we are. There's things that you can do, like coming on summer courses, for instance. So you're already achieving one of these, going on one of these journeys to get to your end goal. So the interesting thing about practice, I think, is that it's a spiral. The more you practice, the more you enjoy playing. The more you enjoy playing, the more you want to practice. And the more you want to practice, the better and better you get. So we end up in this this ever-increasing spiral of getting better and better. And I always find when I'm playing my best, I am also enjoying it the most. because I'm practicing and I'm in form and I'm just enjoying playing, and it's just a wonderful cycle. And what you tend to find then is that you just enjoy practicing for practicing's sake. Sometimes I just pick up my instrument and I just think, oh, I just want to play. And that's the nice thing about being a musician, is that you don't have to pick out a piece of music and play it from top to bottom. It's about discovering, you know, the musical lines within it. So I want you to pause the video again now. I want you to add to those goals that you've just written down and think, what is your journey to get toward those goals? And what would help you achieve them? So is it daily practice? Is it breaking your practice down into chunks? Is it seeking help from a teacher or from a certain book? You might want to do some research. Okay, so pause the video now, and you want to add in some ideas of how you're going to achieve those goals. Okay, pause now. Okay, so nobody's perfect. One of the things to remember about practicing and performing is that mistakes are okay. They're a part of the journey. Whenever you get in your car and you go on a drive somewhere, you know that at some point there's a good chance you're going to get a flat tyre. You just have to accept that mistakes will happen, and some days you'll get your instrument out and you'll just struggle for no reason. And being accepting of those challenges is part of what makes the journey interesting. So the best journeys always have detours. You know, when you go on a journey somewhere and you take that path that you've never been down before, that's when life gets interesting. Okay, so you've got to be flexible with your practice. Don't think, right, I've got to get to the end of this piece, I have to be able to play every bar, one bar at a time. There's so many different ways to approach a piece. You could start a piece, you could start at the beginning, you could work on each phrase one at a time. You could start at the end, go, right, today I'm going to really work on this ending. You could try singing the piece. You could try, you know, looking at the shapes of the piece and how the music flows. There's all sorts of different ways that you can approach it, and the more approaches that you take, the better you will become as a musician. So, another little task for you. We're going to pause the video, and this time I want you to write down all the words and feelings and things that you associate with performance anxiety. So performance anxiety is that sense that we get when we're playing something, whether it's on your balcony or in a concert hall, that fear that we get when we're performing. What are all the things that are associated with that? Okay, I want you to write these down. You ready? Stop your video now. Okay, so here are some suggestions that I've come up with for performance anxiety. So you can see that performance anxiety is broadly split into two categories. We've got the physical side, which we're all so familiar with. When you sit on stage and you get the dehydration, you know, the dry mouth, you might feel that you get your legs shaking, your posture goes, and the big one for the physical aspects of playing is always our breathing. Whenever we're under stress or we're in that fight or flight scenario that our brain goes into, then the breathing is always the first thing that goes. It's always, we start breathing shallow, we don't breathe properly, and that's one reason that I did breathing techniques for our warm-up. It's the most important thing about our playing, is making sure that that basic breathing is always right, and just constantly reminding ourselves about it. The other side of things is the mental side, the internal side of what goes on, the psychology of playing, which is fascinating in itself. There's a lot of sports psychology which relates to this kind of thing, and I find personally this is one of my biggest challenges, is dealing with that internal chatter when you're on stage. You know, the little thoughts that go through your head, like, don't split that note, or don't miss this entry, or well, what was I having for tea, when your mind just wanders. You know, those little psychological aspects of playing, and the lack of focus that you sometimes get, or the lack of concentration. It's a totally different thing. So I've sort of split those broadly into two. We've got the physical things there in blue, and the mental side of things in red. Now, all those physical and mental aspects of playing are still relevant even when we're playing at home. It might be that some of them are not so important, But things like dehydration is still going to affect your playing. Not as much as when you're on stage maybe, but it's still a part of our playing. Breathing, it's still so important. I think it's really interesting that our mood as we're playing an instrument changes. So you can see here, this is a little diagram of what my mood and my practice routine has been like during the past few months. So you can see for me, the beginning of the chart is roughly where I started. And as work got busier and busier, and as we were trying to adjust to this completely bizarre scenario that we found ourselves under, and the work stresses got higher, and the logistics and the challenges of the situation, were really, really difficult. So naturally, you don't have as much time to practice when you're under stress at work. So unfortunately, my playing dipped. Now, normally I try and practice every day without fail, but this has been the first time in a while where I've had a bit of a gap from playing. And then after a while, I was working from home and everything was great. I had some free time, you start relaxing and you have a bit of free time, you think, great, I'll do loads of practice. And I was doing lots of playing, really enjoying it, and your mood lifts. And then the pressures of work got heavier and heavier towards the end of term, and of course your practice isn't quite as good as it usually is, it dips again, and then as we get to the summer break, everything's lifted and it's great, I can start playing again, and I'm happy because I'm playing. So it makes you think, it's a really strange sort of chicken and egg situation. Am I happy because I'm practicing, or am I practicing because I'm happy? And the two things go hand in hand, I always think. I always think at points in my life when I'm happiest, that's always when I'm practicing the most. And that's not a coincidence. These two things, when you have space in your life to enjoy your music, that's when you get the most fulfillment from it. I think something that's so important at the minute is this idea of control. When we have a lack of control, that's when anxiety creeps in and stress, and we worry about things. But the beautiful thing about playing a musical instrument is that it's something that we can control. It's something that we have a wonderful, sphere to explore in and to discover our own little world within our musical playing. So it's lovely that I think this idea of control is really important. The idea that you find control when you can. So if there's something you can control in life or in your playing, then learn to control it. You find, the breathing techniques that will help you to be able to control your playing under those certain conditions. And also, when you can't control something, don't worry. You try your best, but if it doesn't work, don't get stressed. It's not the end of the world. And just learning to enjoy your practicing for practicing's sake is so important. So here's your last little challenge. This time I want you to pause the video and I want you to jot down some ideas of why do you do it? Why do you play a musical instrument? Okay, so here's a few ideas that I came up with. So you can see here, there's lots of different things that it might be that one of these applies to you. It might be that all of these apply to you. Ideas of expressing yourself through music. That's a really, really powerful thing. This idea that you can get your internal emotions and play them through a piece of music is really powerful. Even if you're just playing a simple hymn tune, that's a good challenge actually to get a little hymn tune or some really easy piece that you know well, and just try and express the words of the music through the notes that you play. And bringing happiness, that's a big reason why we play music. And that doesn't necessarily mean playing in a huge concert. That could be just you, just in your living room, practicing, really enjoying playing a piece of music for the sake of playing a piece of music. If you enjoy that in your own home, then when you do get out into the wider world and you play for other people, what a wonderful thing that is, because then they can see if you're enjoying your own musical journey, you bring them along with you. And the sense of achievement as well, that's another reason, the sense of achieving your goals and setting new ones, that's really powerful as well. And what all these have in common is it's about going on a journey. That's what this whole idea of playing a musical instrument is about, is self-discovery and going somewhere. So I love a quotation, and I thought it'd be quite nice to just finish with a little quote. Go on a journey, and if you reach for the stars, you might get to the moon. So enjoy your musical journey, whatever that might be.